This is a demo that I started in my watercolor class to talk to the students about value and trying to capture light in watercolor. And I did a lot of it in class, but there's some things that I need to finish up. How do you take a painting that is at this stage, and what things do you think about to move it from this stage to a finished watercolor? Now there's a lot of whites in here, but that's what's causing the light effect in this watercolor painting. So I want to be very careful in what I do that I don't destroy any of those really whites, and I have to choose carefully about which colors I glaze over and which colors I need to leave the white of that paper. So these are the brushes I'm going to be working with. And one of the first things I want to do is make sure that the black of this hat rim is really defined. And so that is the first thing I'm going to do. One of the fun things about these two characters that I really liked was how this hat brim came out so far beyond its head, and I want to make sure I retain that. So this red hat is in the light, but I do want to glaze over that and make sure the hat is red. And now I can think about maybe glazing over this shirt, and it looks like it's a nice blue, and I'll just get some cerulean blue, and I'll have to decide, you know, do I leave white? Maybe I will. Come down, go right up next to the arm there, and look how that's moving your eye in a different direction. Underneath this boy's hat is much darker than I have it, and photos always have darker shadows, but I think I still want to emphasize how that head is tucked under that hat. So I don't want to stick my hand in any wet part, but I'm just going to come down, and that shadow, there is no white because it's under that brim, and so just gonna come in, go down. That's really tucking that hat brim under. Right up at this ear, it's a little more defined, so I'm gonna do that. But I don't want to leave a hard edge, so I'm going to soften that edge as I go. There's a little bit of shadow that comes down here. So I'm going to soften that outer edge. And then right underneath that nose, that will make that nose stand out a little. And then I'm noticing an interesting angle here that I don't want to lose, and that's going right this way. And then it can go back this way. Gonna come under that ear, so that'll stand out. and then bring clean wash into that. And just that little angle has added something. And bring that, I'm connecting those two darks together so they're stronger. So I want to see if I can lift off just a little bit of this, because there was a nice streak of white that came down there, and I want to maintain that. And look how nice that lifted off. Perfect. And that's just the light of the sun catching on that edge there. So I'm going to come in with my burnt sienna and just tap that corner and tap this corner. And it's very light up at the top, so I'm going to come down underneath and have that little bit of a smile there. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to move. Now that line goes straight, but this darker line is going to come and just define the difference there between the chin and the shadow of the neck. Now, I like the white coming down here on the shirt. Even though it's a blue, it's out on the same plane as his arm, which is really catching the light. But maybe I'll define a little the shadow and the shirt as it goes around this arm here. Right up against that, we're going to go curve that around. And there's the darkness right under that shirt. And then it comes out. And interesting, it's almost a streak like that. But we're going to soften that edge and soften that back edge. Okay, then I'm going to come up here, and where that shadow comes down, I'm just going to pull some of that paint down and pull it down into that shadow there. And that's got a soft edge, which it should. And then right here is going to be another definition of a wrinkle, and I'll just pull that paint that's already on the paper. I'll just pull that down, and I'm going to soften that edge right there. And you can kind of see what that did. And also soften these little wrinkles that are around the cuff. And right here is really soft. I'm just going to pull that out into there a little. All right, and look how that shows that reflected light coming up into that arm. I want to go and just soften that top edge of that bear's head, because it is going to disappear into the background there. And I want it to do that. And maybe I'll just bring some of the darkness of her shirt into that bear's ear and soften the back. And that will help that go back into the background. Now, because this hand here is back behind this hand, I don't want this hand to be as white as this area up here. And so I want to soften some of the edges here, and maybe I can do that by just glazing over with some red and yellow, cad red and cad yellow, and making that, but really bring that shadow up at the top. Okay, gonna glaze over, make it real strong up there, and then clear water, pull it down, and look how that sinks that back into a different plane than this front one here. And then I'm gonna just kind of come down and soften right there. Okay, looking good. Now this, these shorts right here are competing with this white up here. And so I need to glaze over that so my eye is not having to fight jumping around all these white spots. So I'm gonna get cerulean blue again and just glaze over that, and you can see that your eye goes a different place. And I'm gonna soften that edge right there, pull it up into that so you can see how that's softened. So I want to get some more burnt sienna and just really define that this leg is tucked in up here. So I'm going to bring that into shadow more, and that tucks that back in, but then I'm going to bring up clear water underneath that leg. Now, there's a real interesting little shoe loop, which I really like, which I think that's a fun detail. So you have to kind of decide what's a fun detail, what do you want to leave in, and what do you want to leave out. But I want to put that in. And this detail on the very top of his shoe is a fun detail also, because it's dark. And so you've got this gray value against that dark value. And then I'm just going to bring this up, bring it across here. But in order to make it a stronger shape, I'm going to combine with this dark shape up here. I'm going to bring this here and that there. Want to be careful I don't bite into his leg. And then bring that right down into that black. And right there. And that combines those two shapes and makes them stronger. And then I'm going to come up, clear water, back into the paint. And then if it fills in too much, you can just take a little dot of the paint right there at the end and it will move away, which is nice also. Then, it looks like I've got that there. That comes down, maybe comes down into that shape also, so that might be fun to combine that shape. And we've got a little bit of white right at the end, so I'm going to come down and make that fun shape and come down here and into this. And there's white here, but all of this I want to leave that covered over. And that just makes that shoe solid down into that shape there. So that's coming around here. This goes here. And that's a very light, almost cerulean blue that comes in and defines this shape right there. So I want to come up here and lift off part of this hair that got covered, because that is going to tell the story of that hair up there, which is working. Then tapping that with the paper towel to make sure that it works. And then I just want to bring some of that fun detail of the hair down into like to the white of that hair, and then bring this down there. Okay, there's ever so slight a shadow under her hair, so I'm going to come in and soften that one edge. Call that good. The other side, there is no shadow in the picture, and I think that works. All right, just gonna come down, glaze right over that, and already it's moving your eye. I kind of like to watch the eye move. I'm just glazing over parts that I think I need to glaze over. So look how that's shifting the eye back to the center. That is a good thing. I have this white here, but I think, look how that is aiming up towards that center, so I think I will leave that there. Okay, I am just going to bring down shadow there, and then soften all of it. And I think maybe a little right here. And soften that as it comes down. Okay, that makes that reflecting light coming back up a little clearer. And I'm gonna soften this edge right here. And bring it into her neck and bring that down. So you kind of lose that neck. Ooh, and isn't that fun? That turned out very nice. And here, and back here. And then pull it back up into, and look how nice that softened up. And it almost looks like there is a little shadow that comes down here a little. So we'll define that a little and Okay, there we go. Now, another look. And we've got this. We want this bear, okay, to be like that, and then a little bit of shadow here on that white, and bring that clear water into that, and a little of the shadow on this bear here. And bring that down here. Okay, that's there. That is there. That's looking pretty good. And then come in and maybe really define shadows. Really bring that into the shadow. And that will, and then we got to soften that edge. And that's looking good. And ever so slightly on this side, this hand just goes up into, and then that defines that thumb a little, and we've got that coming down. We've got the bear's leg. We're gonna just pull that color up a little into that. Okay, and right here, we want a little more brown right here. And we're just going to bring that color down so that, and in fact, we're going to make it darker. So that it doesn't conflict with the, they may not know what's going on in there. I may not know what's going on in there. But here we go. A little darker there. A little darker right there. And you can decide to soften things after they dry. Or you can go ahead and soften them while they're wetter. As that sinks back under, we'll try to put that more in the shadow there. And soften that edge while it's wet. And a little bit right here. Okay. Now, how's that looking? Ooh, I think that's working. All right. Right here, I probably want a hard edge up at the top and then soften here a little. And maybe on this shadow, hard edge and soften here. So, I know exactly how much water is in my brush. And just soften that edge right there. That looks good. This one, I'm going to soften that right there and bring that out. And, oh, her shoes down here are red, and that's going to tie in with that. So I'm going to make sure I glaze over. Oh, I don't want to cover up that nice white, though. So I will just put the red there, and I almost covered up that white too, but I don't want to do that. Okay, so how's it looking? I really like this. It just, all that white. So I need to be careful that I don't cover up this white that's going up there. So I'll think about that. But then I want to, now this should be the same value as that, but it's not. So I am going to see if I can mimic that color. And doesn't quite mimic that color, but I don't want to cover up that, but close enough. And then I want to come down and define some of this grass. So I could do several things. I could actually paint the grass, or I could come down up above and paint negatively into the grass. And I think that's what I'm going to do. And maybe I'll do it very subtly. So if I'm going to come down here, I want to maintain this nice light color, but then I want to come down and really pull down, and maybe a little more blue towards the bottom. Some of that, and then maybe a little over here. Same thing coming down here. And bring that color down. Ooh, that turned out nice. All right, as I give this painting one last little look, I think I'm done. So that kind of shows you maybe the thinking and the detail that you have to look at to take your painting from almost finished to a finished watercolor. Hope that helps you. Thank you.